Have you ever wondered why some relationships that seem solid still shatter over a single sentence that was never spoken? Why do some couples love each other deeply, yet cannot endure the naked truth of one another? Nietzsche would tell you, it is not because they lack love, but because they lack existential weight. A relationship is only healthy when each individual is strong enough not to turn love into a shelter for their own fear. Most people enter love like beggars, begging to be chosen, begging to be kept, begging to be comforted. They want love to heal what they do not dare to heal themselves, to fill the void they are afraid to face. But Nietzsche looks straight at the most painful point. Love does not save anyone from themselves. It only reveals who has matured and who is still searching for someone else to carry their weakness. Today's video is not a dating hack, not gentle advice, but 4 principles sharp as blades that Nietzsche offers to those who want to build a truly healthy relationship. One that does not trade freedom for acceptance, does not lose the self in exchange for belonging. Stay until the end. These 4 principles will change not only how you love, but how you choose who deserves to walk into your life as an equal companion, not as a refuge for your fear. Number 1. Love is not an escape, but a test of the self. There is an illusion most people cling to. They believe love will heal loneliness, fill emptiness, save them from the nakedness of standing alone. But Nietzsche would say it plainly. Love saves no one from themselves. It only exposes their real strength or the weakness they try to hide. Nietzsche once wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "In loneliness, the lonely one eats himself. In a crowd, the many eat him." Love, in his cold and piercing view, is not a reward for being pleasant, nor a shelter for emotions. It is the first existential test of a soul. Do you enter it because you are strong, or because you are trembling before your own existence? Most people seek a relationship not because they are ready to love, but because they cannot endure the lack of noise when the door of the room closes. Loneliness is not a neutral state for them, but a verdict. They see inner silence as a system error that must be urgently fixed by the presence of another person. And so love becomes a sedative, to forget loneliness, to reduce anxiety, to avoid facing freedom. But something used as a sedative can never become the foundation of character. It is merely a panic agreement wrapped in beautiful language. A person who uses love as an escape is not looking for a companion. They are looking for a pillar to keep them from collapsing. And when 2 selves that cannot stand on their own lean on each other, they do not create double strength. They create double dependency. Nietzsche would call this a manifestation of an undeveloped will to power. When a person lacks the inner force to stand on their own spiritual legs, they look for someone else to become their support. But borrowed support is never stable. One day, when the other grows tired, when attention fades, when distance appears, the entire weight collapses at once. The unsteady do not collapse because of love. They collapse because they used love to carry what they themselves were meant to bear. Look at this example. Very ordinary, yet profoundly Nietzschean. Emily and Ethan loved each other for 3 years. Emily was always afraid Ethan would leave her, constantly asking whether he still loved her, still cared. Every time Ethan went silent, Emily panicked. Every time Ethan was busy, Emily felt worthless. Ethan became Emily's emotional pillar, a role he never consciously agreed to play. Eventually, Ethan grew exhausted. Not because Emily was weak, but because she handed him full authority over the definition of her own existence. When Ethan left, Emily collapsed in tears and said, "You destroyed my life." But the truth, in Nietzsche's eyes, is that her life had already broken long before, the moment she placed the center of her existence into another person's hands. Love was merely where that fracture became visible. Imagine the image of two burning candles. One flame is weak, trembling, only glowing when leaning close to the other. When placed side by side, the weaker flame seems brighter, as if being loved makes it shine. But when separated, its true nature is revealed. A small, unstable flame, easily extinguished. A person without inner strength is the same. They believe they love deeply, but in reality, they are borrowing someone else's light to push away their own darkness. That kind of love is not connection. It is emotional dependency. And Nietzsche would ask mercilessly, can your light burn on its own? Or do you live off someone else's fire? A relationship only truly begins to be healthy when it is no longer used as a mask to hide one's own incompleteness. When you can stand beside someone without shrinking to feel safe, without playing agreeable to be kept, without turning yourself into a pleasant copy to avoid conflict, that is the starting point of love, according to Nietzsche. A relationship only has value when it does not damage anyone's will to power. When the presence of the other does not weaken you, does not swallow your voice, does not force you to trade your truth for temporary peace. Nietzsche once said, "Become who you are," and in love, this is not a blessing, it is a warning. You cannot become yourself if you use love to escape yourself. You cannot grow strong if you enter a relationship hoping someone else will make up for what you refuse to build. Love does not turn the weak into the strong. It only exposes their weakness. And only when you understand this do you see that love is not a refuge for trembling souls, but a place that tests the inner strength of each person. Those who cannot stand will be stripped bare by love. Those who can stand will be sharpened by it. From here on, the question in love is no longer, how do we feel, but can we exist side by side as two strong selves rather than two fears clinging to each other? This very question opens the entire spirit of 4 ways to have a healthy relationship. Because when illusion dissolves, only 4 criteria remain to judge whether a relationship has a real foundation or not. And the first criterion Nietzsche would place on the table, before passion, before harmony, before promises, is the one most people overlook: how two people converse. And you, in love, which moment forced you to shrink yourself, and which moment made you stand upright, as if your soul could not endure one more fracture? Write your story in the comments below. Not to seek comfort, but to do what Nietzsche demands of souls that wish to grow. Place your cracks into the light and look straight at them without fear. Number 2. Way 1. Conversation is the only foundation not eroded by time. And once you see clearly that love only becomes healthy when two selves can stand on their own center, you will understand why Nietzsche does not begin with emotion, harmony, or passion, but with dialogue. Not because he is overly rational, but because he understands a truth of mature life. Words do not merely convey thoughts, they expose the inner structure of the speaker, whether consciously or not. Appearance will fade, passion will cool, but the way a person faces truth through language rarely changes. As Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, talking much about oneself can also be a means to conceal oneself. And among the 4 ways to build a healthy relationship, this is the first cornerstone. can you exist with this person in truth through words or not? Nietzsche does not define conversation the way many people mistakenly do, talking a lot, sharing a lot, or venting emotions to feel lighter. He sees dialogue as a test of inner freedom. A healthy conversation is not where one person talks more, but where no one needs to avoid, no one needs to manipulate, and no one needs to build defenses to protect themselves. A person who cannot truly converse with you cannot resolve conflict with you, set boundaries with you, or live alongside inevitable differences. The greatest exhaustion in love does not come from conflict, but from having to guess what should have been placed on the table with one clear sentence. Consider a very typical example. Olivia and James loved each other for 2 years. They had strong chemistry, they looked compatible from the outside. But whenever differences arose, James chose silence as a defensive strategy. When Olivia asked what was wrong, he replied, "Nothing." When she wanted to talk about the future, he changed the subject. When she set boundaries, he interpreted them as attacks. The more Olivia tried to speak, the deeper James retreated into his fortress. And right there, the relationship began to die, not because of a lack of love, but because only one person dared to enter mature dialogue. Nietzsche would say plainly, you cannot build a healthy relationship with someone who refuses to step into the same reality through words. Their silence is not peace, it is decay happening quietly. This does not apply only to love, but repeats itself in every great human tragedy. In Homer's Iliad, the 10-year war did not begin from hatred between armies, but from something far simpler. Achilles and Agamemnon did not know how to dialogue with each other. Two great egos, two strong wills to power, but instead of speaking truth, they chose silence, humiliation, and authority. Agamemnon commanded. Achilles withdrew. And when dialogue disappears, the ego takes over, dragging collective disaster behind it. Nietzsche would say, tragedy is born not from difference, but from the inability to turn difference into dialogue. In a relationship, a person who cannot dialogue will turn every difference into a threat, every question into an attack, every boundary into an insult. Not because they are bad, but because they lack the capacity to use words as a bridge. For them, language has only two forms, a weapon or a wall. And you cannot love a wall. You can only crash into it until you are the one exhausted. But if dialogue were only about inner freedom, it would still not be enough to keep a relationship alive over time. At some point, love must confront very real questions: money, work, children, responsibility, fatigue, and phases when neither person is at their best. At that point, dialogue is no longer about understanding, but about the ability to make decisions together without destroying each other. Couples without dialogue do not break up because love disappears, but because they cannot discuss matters without hurting each other. They do not know how to talk about money without attacking, how to talk about the future without defending, how to talk about limits without turning them into guilt. And it is in this practical life, not in romantic emotion, that a relationship either matures or collapses. Therefore, dialogue is not only a measure of inner freedom, but the foundation of all long-term structures, marriage, family, and shared life. When emotions fade and life begins to test you, the ability to speak truthfully, listen truthfully, and take responsibility through words will determine how far two people can go together. And here, the first lesson of a healthy relationship appears more clearly than any psychological theory. Durability is not born from two hearts beating as one, but from two minds courageous enough to walk straight into truth together. Love does not require two people to be the same. It requires two selves capable of building bridges with words, even when the ground beneath them is shaking. If you need one honest sign to know whether a relationship has a future, Nietzsche would tell you to look here first: the capacity for dialogue. Because this is not only the foundation of a healthy relationship, it is where everything else is decided. Number 3. Way 2. Without friendship, love will decay. If dialogue is the first foundation of a healthy relationship, then what keeps two people not only understanding each other today, but growing together over many years? For Nietzsche, the answer may be hard to swallow for those in love. Love cannot stand if there is no friendship beneath it. Not the pleasant, comforting kind of friendship, but the kind that makes two selves greater when they stand together. Love may begin with desire, attraction, beautiful moments. But if it is not supported by friendship, it will decay, slowly but inevitably, from the inside. Nietzsche once wrote in Human, All Too Human, "In friendship, one is free to be honest. In love, one still hides." Friendship, for him, is the rare space where a person is free to be themselves without fear of losing a role. Love, when built on too thin a foundation, easily becomes a stage where two people perform agreeable versions of themselves until both are exhausted. A relationship built solely on emotion, attraction, and compatibility will quickly be betrayed by those very things. When people change without friendship, they no longer know how to grow together. Friendship in love is not about sharing hobbies or traveling well together. Friendship, according to Nietzsche, is the capacity to make each other greater, even when it is uncomfortable, even when truth hurts. You stop being a friend to the person you love the moment you are afraid to speak truth for fear of upsetting them. When you lower your standards to keep peace. When you stop pursuing your own growth because you fear they will feel inferior. When you use love to soothe the ego, instead of using friendship to lift both of you higher. At that moment, love begins to decay. Not because you are incompatible, but because you are no longer growing together. Lila and Marcus loved each other for 4 years. They were compatible, they rarely argued, they respected each other. But something had long been dead without them realizing it. They were no longer friends. Marcus wanted to change jobs because he felt stifled in his current environment. Lila said, "You should be stable. I don't want us to worry." It sounded caring, but beneath it lay fear of change, fear of losing control, fear of losing familiar safety. She did not understand that Marcus did not need protection. He needed a spiritual ally. Months later, Lila started a small project that failed. Marcus said, "I told you so. You shouldn't have taken the risk." He did not intend to hurt her, but he forgot that what Lila needed was not judgment, but a friend who would stand beside her even when things went wrong. Over time, both began to feel constrained by the very person they loved, yet neither dared to name it. When they finally broke up, Lila said a sentence Nietzsche would see as a confession from them both. "We stopped making each other grow." Modern psychology has a concept strikingly aligned with Nietzsche's philosophy: self-expansion theory. It shows that a healthy relationship always has 3 elements. Both partners help each other expand their capacities, both feel upgraded rather than limited, and both become better versions of themselves when together. When these disappear, the brain begins to perceive the relationship as a threat rather than a source of energy. Neuroscience also shows that couples who do not support each other's growth have higher amygdala activity, meaning the nervous system begins to react to the loved one as it would to danger. When the person you love is no longer recognized by the brain as a mature ally, but as a threat to your development, every interaction becomes sensitive, easily wounded, easily misunderstood, and easily explosive. Nietzsche did not believe in love based solely on emotion. A relationship without friendship will soon become a place where two people try not to upset each other instead of making each other strong. Where gentleness is bought with self-shrinking, where harmony is maintained by sacrificing truth, where love turns into obligation rather than choice, where promises become chains, where two people still call it love, but are in fact walking together down a slope no one dares to name. Therefore, friendship in love, for Nietzsche, is not an accessory, but the spine. It demands three qualities. First, the ability to challenge without destruction. The person who truly loves you must be able to say, "I think you can do better," without trembling. Not to belittle you, but to place you before a stronger version of yourself. Without challenge, there is no growth. Without growth, there is no future. Second, the ability to respect each other's evolution. You cannot love someone powerfully if you fear their change. Fear of a partner's growth is not love, it is vigilance, a need to preserve position, what Nietzsche would call a weakened will to power. Third, the ability to orient upward, not only toward each other, not "we belong to each other," but "we belong together to growth." Love that only turns inward closes in. Friendship that points both people forward keeps the relationship alive. If this content resonates with you, if you want to continue exploring these steel-sharp principles to build a truly healthy relationship where two selves meet through strength rather than fear, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any part of this journey. This is not a call for support, but an invitation to step into a way of loving that demands you grow up. Number 4, Way 3. Do not promise emotions, promise behavior. If friendship is the pillar that prevents love from decaying, then the next step of a mature relationship is to look straight at the very thing most people still use to judge love: emotions. Nietzsche would tell you that emotions are not a foundation, not an oath, not a place of refuge, but merely a temporary current of the inner world. The only thing that can be built, maintained, and held accountable is behavior. And this is where Nietzsche is most ruthless. Every promise based on emotion is a promise that cannot be kept. Nietzsche wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "The lover wants to be believed to be more than he is, and so he lies." People do not try to deceive each other. They simply lack the courage to admit that today's emotions may not exist next week. They promise forever, not because they want to lie, but because they are intoxicated by a moment they cannot control. But Nietzsche is not concerned with moments. He is concerned with the structure of the soul, whether it is responsible enough to act with dignity even when emotion fades. Because love does not collapse when feelings change. Love collapses when behavior loses its human worth. Imagine emotions as weather. You cannot command the wind to stop, the rain to clear, or the sun to linger for another afternoon. But behavior is like architecture. If you build with rotten wood, it breaks the moment a storm arrives. If you build with stone, steel, and discipline, then even when hail strikes the roof, the structure remains standing. Love built on emotion is a summer house. Love built on behavior is a winter fortress. The harsh truth is that most relationships do not fracture because the heart changes direction, but because people do not know how to behave when the heart changes direction. A person may no longer love you as before, yet they can still choose not to hurt you. A person may be confused, exhausted, distant, yet they can still choose not to turn their pain into a weapon. Nietzsche wants you to see this point clearly. Emotions are not morality. Behavior is morality. And only the weak hide behind, "I'm sad, I'm angry, I can't control myself," to justify their cruelty. The origin of tragedy in love lies in the opposite direction. People use emotions as a license to destroy. I'm sad, so I speak harshly. I'm angry, so I disappear. I'm insecure, so I control. I'm hurt, so I hurt you back. Nietzsche would see this as the collapse of the will to power. The strong take responsibility for their behavior. The weak use emotion as a shield to avoid responsibility. Look at a real relationship, Anna and Theo. Anna once said she loved Theo for life, and she truly believed it in the moment she spoke those words. But as insecurity grew, she began to use silence as punishment, tears to make Theo yield, fear of abandonment to pull him back into the position she wanted. She still loved him. That feeling was not fake. But love without inner sovereignty turns love into a tool of manipulation. By contrast, Theo, though not always right, still chose clarity in behavior. I need time, but I will say so in advance. I'm angry, but I will not turn that into a blow against you. In the end, their love did not die because love ran out. It died because one person did not know how to behave when happiness was gone. Nietzsche would say, "Love does not demand that you always feel beautiful. It demands that you always behave beautifully." This is where way 3 becomes the decisive foundation of a healthy relationship. Mature love is not measured by the depth of emotion, but by the precision of behavior. Emotion is fire. Behavior is the hand that holds the fire. A person who cannot control the hand will burn the very one they love. A person who only knows how to promise emotions will sow expectations they cannot fulfill. And those expectations later become shards of broken glass that slash the relationship apart. But a person who knows how to promise behavior, meaning they know their limits, their responsibilities, what they can and cannot do, creates a love strong enough to survive the changing seasons of the heart. And Nietzsche wants you to understand this before moving on. Love does not need impossible promises. Love needs only one commitment, cold and real enough. I will not turn my own chaos into a burden you must pay for. That is the highest form of morality in love. That is the foundation of a relationship not destroyed by shifting moods. And that is also the only test a mature person can pass by choice, not by emotion. At this point, Nietzsche leaves you with a question sharp as steel. In your current love, what are you promising? Emotions you cannot control, or behavior for which you must take responsibility? The answer will determine whether your relationship belongs to strength or to decay. Number 5. Way 4. Conscious selfishness is the condition for lasting love. And precisely from the boundary between emotion and behavior, another truth of mature love emerges like the final blade, Nietzsche wants you to dare to grasp. A relationship only endures when each individual still retains themselves. Not the childish ego that constantly demands, but the right to exist without being eroded by unconscious sacrifice. This is the final principle, the one that unsettles the crowd, but which strong souls understand clearly. Conscious selfishness is the first condition of long-lasting love. Nietzsche did not believe in the moral ideal of love repeated like a prayer for centuries. To love is to give unconditionally. To love is to put the other before yourself. To love is to sacrifice. To him, that was not nobility. It was the morality of those who want praise for obedience. True love, according to Nietzsche, always contains three elements people try to deny: possession, priority, and exclusion. When you choose one person, you exclude the rest of the world. When you prioritize them, you shape reality according to your will. Possession is not the problem. Denying it is what turns it into a monster in the shadows. So why is conscious selfishness the foundation of lasting love? Because every form of absolute selflessness carries a shadow: resentment. Those who sacrifice too much will one day feel used. Those who constantly abandon their own needs will one day feel invisible. Those who erase themselves to make the other happy will eventually look in the mirror and see no one left to love. Such relationships do not collapse overnight. They rot slowly through self-annihilation that is mistaken for pure love. Imagine a tree pruned too aggressively. At first, it looks neat and beautiful, but continuous pruning weakens the trunk, drains the roots of strength, prevents new branches from growing. It stands there like a complete structure, but hollow inside. Human beings are the same. Those who constantly yield to keep the peace, who continually swallow their own needs to avoid causing trouble, become hollow versions of themselves. When strong winds come, they do not break because of conflict. They break because their vitality was already stripped away. Nietzsche wants you to face this truth. Those who cannot hold themselves cannot hold a relationship. Those who cannot say no will soon resent. Those who have no personal needs will soon lose their inner center and cling to their lover like a lifebuoy. And when love operates through dependency rather than strength, it becomes an endless negotiation. Who sacrifices more? Who endures more? Who hurts more? Nietzsche called this rotten love, where two people try to buy affection with their own being. Conscious selfishness is not selfishness to dominate, but selfishness to exist. It is the ability to say, "This is my need," without apology. "This is my boundary," without trembling. "This is what I will not accept," without fearing the loss of love. The weak believe putting oneself first is immoral. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a morality that teaches people to abandon personal needs in order to be easily controlled. The strong understand that love cannot be built on a soul that has been cut down from itself. Look at Adele, a modern example of Nietzschean spirit. She left a stable marriage not because love had ended, but because she realized a terrifying truth. She was disappearing in her own life. "I had to choose myself," she said, and those were not the words of a selfish person, but of someone who understood that if she stayed, she would betray the deepest core of her being. That marriage was calm, safe, scandal-free, but it reduced her to a role. Adele chose to leave not to destroy a family, but to save the most vital living part within herself. Those who cannot preserve their own being cannot love anyone for long, and she understood this before it was too late. To grasp the nature of conscious selfishness, imagine two rivers flowing side by side. If one dissolves into the other, it loses its name, its direction, its identity. But if each retains its own current, they can meet at many points, exchange silt, enrich each other without losing their own structure. Love is not dissolution. Love is two strong currents meeting without destroying each other. Nietzsche would conclude this with a voice firm as steel. Love endures only when both remain complete individuals. Those with boundaries create respect. Those with personal needs create clarity. Those who do not self-annihilate will never resent. Such strong individuals do not love to fill a void. They love to expand life. Love becomes a meeting of two wills to power, not a hiding place for two weak souls avoiding loneliness. And this leads you to the final question, the question that determines the capacity to love long in Nietzsche's spirit. Can you keep yourself and still stay? Or do you only know how to stay by losing yourself? That answer is Nietzsche's warning. No one can love you rightly if you accept becoming what remains after endless concessions. At this point, pause for a beat and leave in the comments a single word describing what you lost in a relationship. It could be freedom, boundaries, selfhood, dreams, courage, or yourself. Because sometimes a single word, correctly named, is enough for you to see where you need to stand up again. Number 6. The existential oath. Love comes only to those strong enough. When you walk through all 4 principles Nietzsche lays out, a truth begins to rise from the cold bedrock of his thought. Love is not a reward for pleasant hearts, nor a privilege everyone gets to touch. Love, in its deepest essence, is an existential trial that opens its door only to souls who have overcome themselves. Nietzsche once wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "He who cannot command himself will be commanded." No one does your inner work for you. No one bears the necessary fractures on your behalf so that you may become a being of weight. And love, in Nietzsche's true spirit, recognizes only those who carry weight. Most people enter love with a gentle illusion. To love is to be kept, to escape loneliness, to be proven worthy. But Nietzsche would strip that illusion without mercy. Those who seek love for shelter never create a healthy relationship. They enter through need, not strength. They love through lack, not wholeness. Such a relationship cannot build a foundation. It only creates mutual dependency, where two weak souls lean on each other to avoid facing their own truth. We are taught that love is opening the heart, giving everything. But Nietzsche says, love is standing upright in your own freedom. Love is bringing your entire being into a relationship without trading away the core. Love is being strong enough not to use another as a refuge for unhealed wounds. Love does not heal weakness, it exposes it. Those who seek love to be filled will discover they are not truly loved. They are merely used in the same way they use the other to soothe their own fear. A healthy relationship, according to Nietzsche, appears only when each individual can say, I take responsibility for my truth. I take responsibility for my behavior. I do not place the center of my existence in another's hands. Then love ceases to be an invisible transaction. It becomes a meeting of two wills to power, where each brings their strongest self rather than their gaps for the other to patch. And here, the conclusion of the entire journey becomes clear. Love is not for the light, insubstantial, lightly formed. It is for those who have passed through themselves, entered their inner darkness without turning back, learned to stand alone without collapsing, Such people, when they love, do not cling, do not control, do not demand salvation. They love in fullness. If you want to imagine the nature of love according to Nietzsche, picture a massive stone door with no hinges, no handle, no cracks. It does not open through pleading, nor through the hunger to be loved. It opens only when the one standing before it carries enough weight of being. No pretending to be light, no hollowing yourself out to be accepted, no shrinking your needs to avoid making the other uncomfortable. Only a soul densified by inner honesty, by the capacity for dialogue, by mature friendship, by responsible behavior, and by non-negotiable self-respect. Only such a soul makes that door shift. Love operates by that principle. It recognizes the weak and refuses them. It recognizes the strong and clears the way. If there is an existential oath Nietzsche would want a person to carry into love, it is not, "I promise to love you forever," or "I promise to never hurt you." Those promises are merely the breath of fleeting emotion. The true oath would be, "I will bring my entire being into love, not false, not lacking, not borrowed. I choose presence, not clinging. I choose responsibility, not emotion. I choose to become worthy of love before I love anyone." And finally, Nietzsche leaves you with the question no one can escape. Do you enter love as a complete individual, or as a soul begging for support? Do you love with your strength, or with your fear of loss? Are you opening the stone door with the weight of your being, or are you standing before it with empty hands, hoping it will open by itself? That answer decides everything, because love always recognizes who is strong enough to enter. The weak, they exclude themselves, even when they believe they are loving. At this point, what matters is no longer whether you agree with Nietzsche or not. What matters is whether you have the courage to look straight at the four principles now placed before you. Because the truth in love is always harsh in the same way. It does not attack you, but it makes it impossible for you to return to your old way of loving and still keep your self-respect. A healthy relationship is not a reward for being pleasant, but a space that opens only to those strong enough not to hide inside another. And when you stand upright in these four principles, you will see something strange happen. Those accustomed to living through silence, manipulation, avoidance, or demanding that you shrink will fall away on their own. And those truly worthy will step forward with the voice of clarity and respect. If you feel a sting somewhere, it does not mean you are wrong. It only means you are standing before a new boundary. Will you return to be loved in a way that costs you your being? Or will you step forward to love in Nietzsche's way, where two people meet through strength, not fear? Only you can answer. But healthy love always chooses those strong enough to stay. If you want more people to escape ways of loving that make them shrink themselves, like and share this video. Sometimes a cold, sharp truth is the only thing that can save a soul that is losing itself.